Okay, just sit yourself onto your lift and then come into a good cross-leg position. Just have a little wriggle about. Just putting it on mute, I didn't realise I hadn't done it. So a little wriggle about, just make sure that you're feeling even the seat bones, but also even at the feet. So sometimes when we sit in cross legs, our seat bones might feel level and even and evenly weighted, but maybe the feet don't. So just observe how the feet make contact with the floor. Hold onto your knees and lift up into your chest. And if it feels like your feet make connection with the floor unevenly, then adjust. They'll make a certain degree of unevenness because maybe the leg at the front kind of rolls onto the top of the foot, and the foot behind it, maybe it just sits on the little toe side of the foot. But is there evenness and balance? Just look down at the floor, look at something that doesn't move. Just spend a little time just to observe the energy of your breath, the innate energy within every inhalation. So as you inhale, you bring the energy of the universe into the lungs, and that absorbs into the lining of the lungs and is pumped around the body in the blood. So without controlling the breath, just be conscious of its action. Observe how when you inhale, your chest rises upwards and outwards. And as you exhale, how the chest lowers and relaxes. Just release your knees, bring your hands into Namaste. Lengthen from your armpits into your elbows. That was the action that we were focusing on yesterday. So lengthen from the armpits into the elbows. Squeeze the elbows into the heels of the hands. The heels of the hands to the fingertips. And then allow your eyes to gently close. Focus on long, slow, deep, deliberate inhalations and exhalations. Keeping the chest and the heart area elevating to the ceiling. Just feeling the expansion and relaxation of the chest with the inhalation and exhalation. Observing the intercostal muscles role in the breath. When you exhale, they contract to help the diaphragm empty the lungs of the breath. As you inhale, they elongate to accommodate the breath. To accommodate the expansion of the lungs. And then draw your chin forwards and down to make contact with the chest. Just spend a moment to seek to generate a genuine, heartfelt sense of gratitude for something or someone or somewhere. Hold on to that feeling of abundance as you release the backs of your hands down toward your knees, palms facing upwards. And then as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and the focus to softly come back. Just hold on to your knees, lift up into the chest, drawing the abdomen towards the spine, lifting the abdomen up to the diaphragm up to the collarbone, drawing the shoulders down away from your ears at the same time. Take a deep inhalation and then turn to the right side, drawing your abdomen across and your ribs and your shoulders, keeping the neck soft. Just observe where your body is in the pose, where your weight sits. Does it change to the right seat bone? Draw your abdomen and your ribs and your shoulders across. Do you want to sweep your chin across to the right shoulder? That is the ego doing the pose, because it wants to do the best pose than everyone else. But we should let the neck be soft. Lift the chest up to the ceiling. Turn from the shoulders instead. So you apply a method to the twist rather than just let the head guide the twist. Come back to the center. Hold on to your knees, lift up into the chest, elevating the heart area upwards. And then turn to the left. Guide the heart rather than the head. Guide the body rather than the desire to do the best possible pose. Of course, we all want to do the best possible pose, but if we do the pose with the head, then we actually lose the pose. Just let your head go over towards the left shoulder, and the pose, suddenly you leave the rest of the body behind. Bring the chin back to the center and turn from the torso, from the shoulders, from the ribs, from the abdomen. Just let the neck be soft. Let the head observe the body. And then come back to the center. Let's come off your lift and come into virasana. So out sitting back on your feet, the big toes are together and the knees are wide enough apart to bring the chest through in a moment. So just observe what in the poses that we do today, what the head wants to do and what the body does. So just let the body just sink into the ground for a moment. Just let the legs relax into the floor. So perhaps the legs resist the pose, or maybe it really feels like, if you're used to the pose, maybe it feels like it brings energy to the legs. This is a great position to sit in if you've been on a long walk and your legs are tired, just to give your legs a rest. It returns the energy to the legs, even if you don't put any effort in. Feel where your shins are in contact with the floor. Is it the kind of blade of the shin, or are you kind of rolling onto the kind of outsides of the shins? Just spend a moment just to observe and to sharpen the pose by ensuring that you're on the blade of the shin. And then lift up into the heart area. Try to keep the seat bones down on the heels. Come forwards with the heart, keeping the head lifted and in observation of the heart area. Come forwards, lengthening forwards. But don't come forwards with the head, because that will make you lose the extension of the spine. Keep the heart lifted, keep the head observing the heart area, observing the seat bone region. Stretch the palms away, squeeze the outer elbows in, observe the breath, keep the head lifted initially. Driving the heart area forwards, keeping the seat bones as close to the heels as you possibly can, and then finally bring the forehead down. If you lose contact with the seat bones, and bring the hands a little closer to the head, and then reactivate your arms, spread your fingers, spread your palms, squeeze the outer elbows in. Focus on long, slow, deep, deliberate breaths. Allow the forehead to press into the floor. Press the area between the eyebrows into the ground. If your head doesn't reach the floor, put a block underneath it. Find the multitude of stretches. So it's not just falling forwards. I see this all the time when I'm in the room with new students. They've got their tailbones sticking up in the air, collapsing into their arms, into their head, and that isn't the pose. So then you have to encourage them to draw the tailbone down, to lengthen from the hips into the armpits, into the elbows, into the wrists, into the palms, into the fingers, into the fingertips, even into the fingernails. Just come up onto your knees. So if you're not doing dog down, you can do the cat and the cow, turning the tailbone up, lengthening the chin and the chest forwards, and then tucking the tailbone in, drawing the chin and the chest out. You can do cat and cow and then go into dandasana. If you are doing dog down, then bring your feet as wide apart as the mat. Just think about the cow pose, lifting the seat bones up towards the ceiling, and then activate that action as you come up. Breathe even, deep inhalations and exhalations, listening to the breath. So whichever pose you are in, observe whether you are driving the action from the head or the heart, or a combination of both. So use the balance of the heart in conjunction with the intelligence of the head. The intelligence of the head knows what the pose feels like on other days. So we try to find that internal balance, that action that we know. Activating the legs as we typically do, lifting the seat bones up to the ceiling. So tadasanaizing the legs. And then step your feet forwards and then come up into a standing position. And then bring a couple of blocks for your hands. And then have your feet as wide apart as your mat. So drawing the outside edge of the feet in line with the edge of the mat. Just tighten your kneecaps, turn the fronts of the thighs inwards, lift the thighs up towards the ceiling, raise your arms up. Have your arms wide to start off with, because it gives you space in the chest to elevate your energy up to the ceiling. So if you've got a bad back, bring your hands back onto your hips. If you don't, come forward, lengthening the arms away, and then bring your hands down onto the blocks. So just lifting the legs out of the feet, lifting the seat bones, doing that cow action, lifting the tailbone to the ceiling, pushing the fronts of the thighs into the backs of the thighs, turning the fronts of the thighs inwards, tightening the kneecaps, turning the inner knees towards the back of the room, projecting the chin and the chest away. Breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. If your back will permit it, and if you've got a bad back and you're in the middle of a kind of a episode of pain, then just on the side of caution. If you can come down lower, do. If there's a reason why you need to keep your heart in line with your head, then just stay at that higher level. If you can reach the floor, then do. If there's no problem with your back, then bring the thumb into the crease of the elbows, wrap your fingers around your elbows, and then hang down into uttanasana. Just observe what your body is capable of. Observe what your body wants to do, what your body is doing, but always observe the outcome of the pose. Just listen to the breath. If you acknowledge that something in the pose isn't right for you, then you go back to one of the former manifestations of the pose. So go back to the balance. Do you feel like your legs are working evenly? Whichever version of the pose you are doing. Are the seat bones lifting evenly? Are the legs working evenly? Do the feet feel even on the floor? So do they feel like a mirror image of each other, or do they feel like two disparate parts? It's always good to start at the feet and then find your balance from there. Okay, bring your hands back onto the floor, bring your hands into your hips, and then bend your knees. And then come up into tadasana. Just have the inner edge of your feet together, lifting the chest. Just breathing even deep inhalations and exhalations. Just feel where your balance is. Maybe it feels as though you waver a little. So just find that center of balance. Observing from the feet upwards. Find the feet. Are they a mirror image of each other? Lift the shins. Lift the kneecaps. Lift the thighs. Turn the thighs turn the thighs inwards. Turn the inner knees towards the back of the room. Tuck the tailbone in. Lengthen your arms out in front, really spreading into the fingers. Turn the palms and then reach all the way behind you for namaskarasana. Bring the tips of the fingers together. Walk the tips of the fingers up towards the neck as much as you can. And then you probably start off like this and then draw your elbows towards the wall behind you. And then lengthen from the shoulders into the elbows, and then draw the elbows in towards the heels of the hands, like you do in namaste at the beginning of the session. Just lifting out of the feet and up into the chest. Pressing the palms firmly together. If you can't reach the palms together, reach the opposite elbow behind the back. Breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Push the heels of the hands consciously together. Lengthen from the heels of the hands up into the fingertips. Take deep inhalations. And then gently release. So even if you drop your chest a little to release, reset it, stretch into the fingertips. As you release the hands, turn the palms all the way out, lifting the chest against the ceiling. Focusing on long, slow, deep, deliberate breaths. And then stretch your arms forwards. Interlock the fingers right into the webbing of the hands. Turn the palms all the way out. And then raise your arms over your head. Try and wing your arms beyond your ears. Breathing in through the nose and out through the nose, listening to the breath. And then release, just swap the interlock of the fingers and then turn the palms all the way out. And again, raise your arms over your head. Just observing the body's response to pose. Fill the lungs with non-resistance. body will absorb more of the energy of the breath. And then release your arms, just stretch your arms to the floor. Lifting up into the chest, elevating the heart area upwards, lengthening the shoulders down into the arms, into the wrists, into the palms, into the fingertips. Turn the palms all the way out, rotating the upper arms in the socket. Breathing even deep inhalations and exhalations. And then stretch your arms out in front, bring your arms behind you, come back into namaskarasana. So this pose broadens the chest. So if you feel like you're getting a cold, it opens up the chest so that you can breathe a little more fully, completely. Lift the heart area to the ceiling. Feel the firmness of your legs. Opening the chest, winging the elbows back, squeezing the heels of the hands together by drawing the elbows in towards the heels of the hands. Lengthening the hands from the heels of the hands to the fingertips. Breathing even, deep inhalations and exhalations. And then step or jump your feet wide apart for prasarita, padottanasana. Now if in prasarita it's too strong to come forwards with your hands behind your back, then release your hands and do prasarita 1. But just be in the pose, spreading the fingers, no, not spreading the fingers, spreading the toes, hitting your shins back so that your weight is in your heels, lifting up into the heart area. And then come forwards, hinging at the hips. Just come forwards halfway. If there's a reason why you don't bring your head below your heart, then at this stage release your hands and then reach down and find the floor. Otherwise, I have to come back up again. Otherwise, you can come all the way down, bringing the head down towards the floor. Prasarita, padottanasana 2. Activating the legs really firmly, keeping the weight away from the head and into the legs, keeping the legs hitting back. Try to put blocks underneath your head if your head doesn't reach. You just rest in your head rather than collapsing into it. And then gently come all the way back up. Release your hands. Bring your hands out wide and then step or jump feet back together. Just listen to the breath. Observe your body's response to the pose. Quite an intense one, isn't it? Quite an intense pose, so you feel lots of energy as a result of it. Breathe in through the nose and out through the nose, listening to the breath. Can you keep the chest as wide as it was when you had your hands behind your back? Can you feel that you can draw the dorsal spine forwards a little, just to broaden the chest where the hands were? Listen to the breath. Bring your hands onto your hips, bring your feet hip width apart, turning your toes inwards, and then hinge at the hips. Keep the chest and the heart lifting, and then if you don't come all the way down because you're not bringing your head below your heart, then just use the blocks. Otherwise, have the thumbs in the crease of the opposite elbow, wrap the fingers around the elbows and then hang down. Just observing the energy of the pose, observing the action of the legs. Starting at the feet, just make sure that your feet are a mirror image of each other. That doesn't mean from the outside, but just from the feeling of the way that the feet connect to the ground. And then release your hands down to the floor. And then we're going to walk forwards into dog down. If you're not doing dog down, you can come onto your knees and do the cat and the cow again. Or you can do dandasana. Walk your hands forwards. Bring your hands shoulder width apart if you're doing dog down. And if you're doing the cow, bring your feet hip width apart. Bring your knees hip width apart if you're doing the cow and the cat, and then lengthen yourself away. Feel that your center of gravity is evenly distributed between the hands and the feet, the hands and the legs, the arms and the legs. Feel that you're lifting the tailbone up to the ceiling, like that is the center of gravity, or that's the apex of the pose. And then come down onto your knees, just sit back on your heels for a moment. Just observe how the body feels. Observe the energy that you have released through your practice so far. Excuse me. And then come forwards, hinging at the hips. You can use a bolster underneath your chest if you prefer. Lengthening along the bolster, sitting, trying to keep the seat bones down on the heels, lengthening the heart area away, and then bringing the forehead down. Or you bring your forehead onto a chair, not onto a chair, what I'm talking about, onto a block. If you lose contact with the seat bones and the heels. And then just sit yourself back onto your seat bones. Again, just observing the energy that you have released through your practice this morning so far. And then bring yourself into cross legs. Just sit either directly on the floor, or if sitting directly on the floor doesn't feel right for you, if you kind of sink in the chest, then sit on a folded blanket or on some blocks. Just hold onto your knees. Just find your center of gravity. So maybe you need to adjust the position of the seat bones to make the seat bones feel even, to feel level. Breathe in through the nose and out through the nose, listening to the breath. Rolling onto the front edge of the seat bones, lifting up into the heart area, drawing the shoulders down away from your ears. Just focus on the expansion and the contraction of the breath. And then turn to the right side, drawing your abdomen across, your ribs across, your shoulders across. And then come back to the center. Just lift up into the chest, elevating the heart area to the ceiling, and then turn to the left. And then gently come back to the center. Just feel the energy that you have released through the turns and through the poses so far. And then come down onto your back and come down into baddangulyasana. Soles of the feet together, your knees apart. Just let your head rest down onto the floor. If your head rolls back, put a folded blanket underneath it. Just holding on to the lower ribs, letting the knees fall apart. Just let the body relax into the pose initially. If there's stiffness in your hips, then you can just give yourself blocks. Just go back to the feet. Feel how the feet connect to each other. Is there evenness on the outside edge of the feet? Do the feet connect to each other evenly along the foot and into the heels? Turn the tailbone in, draw the abdomen to the spine. Listen to the breath. Just focusing on drawing the breath evenly in through the nose and out through the nose. Interlock the fingers right into the webbing of the hands. Turn the palms all the way out, up to the ceiling. Squeeze the outer elbows in. And then lengthen your arms along the floor. If there's stiffness in your shoulders, you can put a folded blanket underneath your hands or blocks just to support the shoulders. Just consciously bring extension into the pose, lengthening from the hips into the knees, into the shins, into the feet, from the hips into the armpits, into the elbows, into the wrists. Breathe even deep inhalation and exhalation. Raise your arms to the ceiling, swap the interlock of your fingers. So you're doing the unnatural interlock, the other index finger is on the top of the stack. And then lengthen your arms along the floor again. Just observing difference in the shoulders, just from the change of the interlock. Keep the legs active, keep the arms active, keep the torso active. And then release your arms, release the hands, just rest your hands on your lower ribs, just let the body relax into the pose a little. Just feeling the energy in the hands and in the arms. Okay, and then gently draw your knees towards each other. Have the knees together, the feet apart. Just resting into the floor. Okay, roll over onto your side, sit yourself up, and then get your blanket, your folded blanket for your head, just making sure that it's evenly folded. And then lay yourself down the centre of your mat. If you're wearing glasses, just take them off if it's comfortable to do so. Just stretch yourself out along the floor. And then allow yourself to completely release into the ground. Hooking the muscles of the arms and the legs. Initially allowing the body to just become heavy on the ground. Through that heaviness comes a real distinct lightness that radiates from the bones and into the muscles. Maybe today it feels like there's more energy in new places. Just observe it. Observe how your energy radiates from the bones and into the muscles. And from the bones and into the organs. And into the flesh and the skin. Draw your breath down into the toes, into the fingers, and all the way up into the top of the head. Basking in that feeling of energetic lightness. And then wriggle your toes, wriggle your fingers, just bring yourself back into this pose of shavasana. And then draw your knees in towards your chest. Just pull your knees in towards the chest, just have a little rock from side to side, from top to bottom. Move your knees away from your chest to move down the back. Just a gentle massage on the spine. And then very gently roll over onto your right side. Just stay down for a breath or two. And then just stretch out the top leg, come back up into a seated position. Just sit in with crossed legs, with your hands in. Namaste. A final spinal lift. Draw in your breath in through your nose, down into the abdomen. Conscious of the energy that you have released through your practice this morning. A good, positive, healthy flow of clean energy that the extensions and the forward bends and the twists bring to the body and to the mind. And then draw your chin down to meet your chest. Just spend a moment to acknowledge the positive energy you have created inside. and send some of that positive energy out into the world. And then release the backs of your hands down towards your knees, palms facing upwards. And as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and the focus to softly come back. Thank you very much. Thank you. So hopefully you feel like you really kind of lifted and transformed your energy. Maybe you felt a little reluctant at the beginning